Hello, everyone. Joy Brooks with Email and Coffee. Today I'm talking with Colleen Kersey from across the pond.
Yeah.
There you go. So, Colleen's work is very interesting, and I'll let her tell us all a little bit about that.
Okie dokie. So across the pond, absolutely right. I am in France, despite the English accent. I'm very much English. And I can talk to animals. So I know it sounds a bit weird, and before you hang up thinking that I've lost the plot completely, I discovered I could do it purely by accident, and so I wasn't expecting it. I can't tell you stories of having grown up, always been able to speak to animals, and all these lovely things you hear. It happened purely by accident. I was doing a Reiki session with somebody, and I got a very vivid picture, which maybe later in the chat we can talk about. And I mentioned it to the lady after I'd spoken to her cat. I was doing a Reiki session for her cat, sorry. And when I spoke to the lady afterwards, I told her what this weird picture was. And she said, "Oh my God, Colleen, you've described our lounge window." And it was like, what? I've done what? But it was so detailed that I thought, okay, that's weird. And I went away and I did some research and discovered that there is a thing called interspecies communication, and I could do it. So I did some training and I did hundreds of case studies just to make sure. And I went professional last year. And now I offer a service online. I can work online. I need only a photograph. And you can ask your animals questions, all those things that you want to know. Oh, why do they always do that? I wonder what their favorite food is. I wonder what their past life was before they came to me. And even animals in spirit. So people form a list of questions and they send them to me along with a photograph. And I ask the animals the questions and I jot down all the answers and I provide a transcript of the conversation. And yeah, it's still a bit mind blowing. I know whenever I talk about it, it always seems a bit weird, but the feedback that I get and sometimes the things that I see the animals doing and the people go, "Oh my God, yeah, they do that," or "That's exactly what they do." And it's not kind of general stuff. It's sometimes it's really specific. So yeah, so it's it's a bit of
That's
an odd
it's
business.
quite it's quite like a wake-up call,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Especially when it's a bit odd, and people go, "No, really?" And you go, "Yeah, really."
Yeah, I talk to the animals. Are you able to, well, let's put it this way. Is it something that just happens? Are you able to like turn it on and turn it off? Or like you pass a squirrel and you just like suddenly, you miss some peanuts and you're like, okay, you're hungry. Let's see what I could do for you.
No, for me, I have to turn it on. I know some people can just have it open all the time. I'm not sure I'd even want that because that would be a nightmare, right?
That'd be
I
intrusive.
mean, not only the squirrel, there'd be, the deer and the dog and the cat and God knows what else. So for me, I have a very, very crazy active mind. And obviously you have to be in a meditative zone to be able to get these sorts of things in. So for me personally, it takes a lot of concentration. I really have to sit and kind of focus, and it doesn't always work because I'm thinking about, oh geez, did I put that second load of laundry on, and oh God, what do I need to put on the shopping list tomorrow? And you've got to try and shut that off in order to be open to these things coming in, and that's not always easy if you've had a hectic day the day before. And so it is an effort, but well worth it. Well worth it.
Um, I would, I've always had dogs and I've had cats and I like animals. So, I've always found it, um, uh, I don't want to use the word calming, but I've always found it to be an experience to be around
Mm,
animals.
mm,
And as they get bigger, like a horse or a cow, as they get bigger, people will suggest in their minds that there's communication. I suspect because their eyes get bigger and they become more expressive, and humans do a lot of eye contact. So it's a perception
mhm,
that
mhm,
we're communicating,
mhm, mhm.
right? Whether we do or not. So I'll look at my dogs and I'll force conversations into their heads or into my head that they're having with me.
Right. Yeah.
And I believe it. But for you, do you have animals right now?
I do. I have 5 cats. Somebody did actually ask me yesterday, "Oh, do you speak to your own animals?" The answer is no, because I would fear that because I had them before I discovered I could do this, I kind of know their personalities and their characters already, and I kind of think I would now doubt myself. If a stranger comes to me with a picture of a dog, I can come up with the things because I don't know that dog. If a friend comes to me with a picture of their dog, I already know more or less what their dog is like, the same as I know more or less what my cats are. So I kind of go much like you do with your animals. You kind of you have that bond with them, but I don't kind of sit and have full on conversations with them because I would just fear that my knowledge of them already would sway what I was getting from them. So I think it's much better to kind of to not know anything about the animal within reason.
And that makes sense, because again, we're humans and we have perceptions, and
Yes.
our reality is what we almost make it. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, there's a reality that exists without us, but how we navigate through life is through what
Yeah.
we perceive to be real. So, if I feel that I had an argument with somebody, I will have made that assumption, and they'll come back and say, "No, I never had a problem with you. I sneezed." And then I was upset, because I didn't feel well. It wasn't what you said. Oh, I thought it was what you said, what I said. No, what are you, crazy?
Yeah.
So those things do happen.
Mm.
You were very abrupt with me this morning. Are you angry with me? No, I had to go to the bathroom. Oh,
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. Exactly that. And a lot of people ask also, I had somebody ask me just recently, how much detail do you get from people about the animals first? Because if I was a scallywag, I could create a load of rubbish, couldn't I? Going, oh, hang on a second. Yeah, so tell me about your dog. Oh, and what I try to explain is that I take very basic. Obviously, I prefer to have the sex of the dog because I don't want to insult the dog calling it a she when it's actually a he. I have had, although don't laugh, because I have had a cat that I spoke to where they said to me, it's a male cat, and I was like, are you sure? Because I was getting this really distinct feminine feel to it. It's a bit like, in real life when you meet a man who's just really feminine, or vice versa when you meet a woman who's really masculine. And so when I got back to this lady afterwards, and I said, I'm sorry, I know you said your cat was male, but I just got this really strong feminine feel. And she said, oh my God, she says, I always think that. He always comes across the way he walks, the way he lies, the way he meows, everything about him is like really effeminate. So that was like really odd. But going back to what I was saying, so I take some details. So I take obviously I like to take the age because sometimes I get a feeling of an age, but it's more like an energetic age. Again, you can meet a child who's wise beyond their years, and you
yes.
can meet a 70-year-old who's as mischievous as a teenager, right? So sometimes I like to be able to say, right, even though your dog is 13, actually inside they have this really youthful feel to them. And that obviously changes how the dog's going to approach life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but other than that, I don't take any other details, except if they ask me what the animal's favorite food is. Because I got caught out on that once. I asked a dog what their favorite food was, and you think it's an innocent question. Distinctly, I got a picture in my head of little bits of roast chicken, like barbecued chicken. Fabulous. Nice clear picture in my head. Great. Wrote that down in my report, got back to the person, and the person's like, no, we don't ever eat barbecue chicken. And I'm like, no, but the dog told me. And she was like, yeah. And what we actually discovered was she hadn't had the dog since the dog was a puppy. She'd had the dog since he was, I don't know, 4, and the dog had come from a previous house. And she was actually then able to establish from this previous house, they always had barbecues out the back, and then they would always give the dog some barbecue chicken. So now when I ask an animal, what's your favorite food? I say to the people, if you have like yesterday's communication, what's your favorite treat? I said, send me a picture of the 2 treats. Because then I can say to the animal, Do you like this one or do you like this one? Tell me what you feel when you look at the beef burger treats, and tell me what you feel when you look at the duck treats. And that way I can gauge the behavior. So, I get detail there, but other than that, it's, I guess you would call it a cold reading. There isn't anything, I don't need a full history of everything about the dog before I can talk to it.
Do they think visually? Like, how do animals, let's talk about dogs now.
Okay.
How do dogs think?
Well,
do you know that?
I haven't noticed a difference in the way that dogs think from cats think from horses. Okay. And I also haven't noticed a great deal of difference between breeds, which is really interesting because people say to me, oh, but my dog's a big Bolshe dog, or my dog's a little Chihuahua. It's going to chat differently. We're talking about inner essences here. It doesn't matter whether you're a huge, large person or you're a tiny little midget. You still have an essence about you that's going to speak openly and honestly. So I went off on a tangent a little bit there.
No, it makes sense.
There's different ways that animals talk with us, and they use. Have you heard of the clairs? It's a common. So you've heard of the word clairvoyant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so clair, the word clair means clear in French, and voyant means to see. So clairvoyant means clear seeing. Okay, and then you have clairaudient, you have claircognizance, and you have a selection of clairs. So this is the clear seeing, is where you get a picture in your head. So I can say to you now, Joy, think of an orange. And you'll get a picture of an orange in your head. You know what that orange looks like with the little dimples on the skin and a little bit where it connects to the tree, or maybe it's got little leaves or whatever. You can picture it perfectly in your head. So it's the same when I say to an animal, your favorite treat, is it the beef or the duck? I'll get a picture of the beef in my head. So that's one way that they can talk. They can also talk. I can also get sometimes full sentences, because animals access your database of information in your head to relay their messages. So sometimes I'll get like I'm chatting with you now. I'll get like full-on conversation. Other times I'll just get pictures. Sometimes I'll get sensations on my skin. So I'll get like a prickly sensation or a pain or a dull ache. Sometimes I get smells, and sometimes I get tastes. That was a terrible experience. I'll never do that again.
I was going to ask you to help me out with my dog, but I think I'll not do that.
That was a rookie mistake. That was, I think.
Yeah, it could be.
So it really depends, and some animals are stronger in some areas. So some animals, you'll just get the pictures, and no matter what you ask them, you'll get pictures as a reply. And that's great, but sometimes doesn't give you context. I'll give you an example. One of my case studies was my best friend, because she has so many animals, and one of her Jack Russells, I asked the question that she'd given me, what are you afraid of? Or, well, no, what don't you like? What don't you like? And I got a picture of what looked like a blue bowl, or rather what my head decided was a blue bowl. Great, I thought, I've got the picture. There it is. Wrote it in my report, sent it back to her. She calls me up and she goes, Colleen, he doesn't have a blue bowl. And I'm like, no, he does. He showed me. And she's like, no, they all have stainless steel bowls. So I said, no, but what about the water bowls? No, they're all stainless steel. I said, no, I'm telling you, I saw it. It was round. It had it was a blue bowl. I'm telling you. And of course, she, is my best friend. She was like, oh, well, don't worry. Maybe you just need to learn more. Keep trying. Keep up the good work. Yada, yada. Anyway, a couple of days later, she phones me up and she goes, Colleen, oh my God, I know what the blue bowl is. And what it was a kiddie's swimming pool. Do you know those little hard plastic ones that kind of look like a shell? You kind of open them up and you put water on the one side, sand on the other side. And they're quite small because they're for toddlers, okay? And they pull this out for one of the other Jack Russells and the Labrador because they love it. But this specific Jack Russell is frightened of it. And she said, there's your blue bowl. And I was like, so that's when I learned, when I get a picture in my head now from an animal, I have to try and understand the context. Okay, you show me a blue bowl. Can you show me it's in front of something so I can understand how big it is, where it is? Is it inside? Is it outside? So the pictures aren't always definitive answers, they clues, and then you have to
It
try
sounds
pretty quick.
it sounds interesting. Like you said, some will be able to send you the words because that's what they're accessing. But I'm thinking that um, that possibly their ability, like anybody, like you have brain surgeons, and then you have people that knit, right? Right.
Yeah,
So the person who knits may not be as able to describe everything in life
absolutely.
as much as somebody who's a brain surgeon, because obviously the brain surgeon has a wider vocabulary. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
the dog in this, the animal in the same way may have a a, a complete vocabulary.
Yeah, absolutely. Or just very limited, like a child would,
Right.
they haven't learnt all the stuff yet. Yeah, yeah.
And also, if people do or don't talk with their animals, there's no reason for them to have a vocabulary. And some
No, that's
people
also true.
don't talk with
Yeah,
their animals.
yeah.
I mean, as odd as it sounds, occasionally I'll read out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what possesses me, but it does.
Well, one of your
I'll be
animals probably
reading.
enjoys it.
I'll be reading and going, you know what? I want to read out loud. I'm like, okay. And I do. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with me? But I know that I'm weird. So I'm reading out loud, and her little head, Lucy, who sits with me, goes like this to me. And she goes back to bed. But now she's listening to everything that I'm saying.
Yeah.
At first, she probably thought I was talking with her.
Yes, that's right. Yes,
And
yes.
which is
Yeah.
why her head comes up and goes, yeah. And she's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Puts her
But
head back down. But now she's listening.
now she's taking note. But it's interesting, how you said like you don't know why, but all of a sudden you started reading aloud. That's often what happens when you're kind of just sitting there in the afternoon, perhaps reading your book, and all of a sudden you go, oh, I think I'll give my dog a treat. Yeah? And you think you've come up with that idea. But actually, the dog has gone, oh, I really fancy a treat. Let's just see if we
Push
can
it.
plonk this idea in mum's head. And all of a sudden, mum will go, oh, gosh, let's give you a treat. Oh, yes, you're such a good boy. Look, you're sitting there waiting for your treat. And the dog's like, bloody hell, I've been sitting here for ages.
I've been nudging you for a while now.
Yeah.
And by the way, I need to go out. I'm very vocal with my dog, so if I ever did approach you with a session, you would probably be inundated with conversation. Because I completely, any animal, have a full conversation with them.
Yeah, I do too, and and it's brilliant, regardless of whether they talk back. I think it's just the pleasure of just being able to just be with them and just talk, because animals just accept you for what you are.
Exactly.
They really do. Warts and all.
I would rather them get to know that I'm angry with them through my voice than me having to necessarily, have to punish them.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
I use the voice, and if they don't get it, then I may have to punish them
yeah. Then
if
they
they're
get,
doing something wrong. In
yeah.
which case, I call them words like, what did I call my dog this morning? Oh, goofball.
A goofball.
Are you goofball? So by now she's like, please don't call me goofball.
She knows goofball's not good.
Goofball's no good. That's when Will walk, and don't get excited. She's not. Will walk, and they love smells,
Mm.
and occasionally a particular smell is food, right?
Yeah.
And so they start licking it off the ground. I'm like, no, that's goofball. That's totally goofball. I don't care what it is. I don't care. It could be filet mignon. You're not licking it off the floor.
You're not licking it, no.
No, I don't know where it came from. No. You're a goofball. And she'll look up at me and go, oh, I'm a goofball, huh? Yeah. And don't make me hit your hiney, because I don't want to do it. And people probably see me hitting their little hiney because the goofball didn't work, and they're still licking it. And when you have two dogs, you're watching one and the other one is being a goofball.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how it works because they've discussed this prior, haven't they? They're like, right, which one of us is going to be a goofball this walk? No, I wanted
Don't
to do it.
forget,
You did it last
when you
time.
smell that, just stop
Yeah,
so
just
she'll be bothered with you and I'll eat it. And you can eat it next time.
yeah, I'll
No,
let you do it next time.
next time, not. Never. You're never eating it.
That's so
So
true.
what types of people come to you? Like what are the normal questions people do ask?
Well, I actually ended up compiling a list because it started to become very obvious that there were some commonalities. And so I compiled a list and put it up on my website so that people, because I do get some people who come to me to go, oh, I don't know what to ask. It's like rabbit in the headlights syndrome, isn't it? It's like, oh, when you have the chance to ask your animal anything, all of a sudden now you can't think. So I have a page on the website which includes the questions so that people can look. Most often, the very, very general ones obviously are you happy? Or what can we do to make you happier? What frightens you? Trips to the vet. How can we make trips to the vet more comfortable for you? Communication I actually did this morning. The dog told me it didn't like the smell at the vet, and I was like, oh yeah, the clinical doc, and the dog was like, no, it's the smell of the anxiety of the other animals, and I was like, oh, he could actually smell, when the other animals were no. Anyway, I digress. Other questions. Often when people have rescue animals, what was the life before? And I'm very careful with that because I used to kind of just barge into like, oh, tell me what your life was before, until I started to realize that actually some animals had some pretty crappy beginnings in life, and I had to actually think about asking that question with a little bit more tact.
And would
you
you
know,
like to tell me
yeah,
something about your past?
yeah. Are you happy talking about it? And is there something that we can help you with currently that will help you, come to terms with anything that happened in the past and things like that? How can we? Oh, what's your favorite food? Or what are the things you like to do? Your favorite places to go? Those are kind of the general ones, and then there's some more specific ones. So I quite often work with people who are moving states or countries, and it's preparing the animal for the move. Because obviously, if you think about it from the animal's perspective, you've got all your animals at home there, Joy, and all of a sudden you decide now you're going to move to, I don't know, France. You're going to come live next door to me. So now you pack all your boxes, and now all of a sudden, all over the house, there's boxes everywhere. There's people coming in to value your house. You're all excited and anxious, and your dogs are like, what the heck's going on here? And they get anxiety. They get anxious. They get frightened. Some rescue animals will worry about now being abandoned or left behind, etc., etc. So I do specific cases there where I explain to the animal that, what's happening, that they're not being abandoned, that actually this is happening so that they can have a better life. So those questions are much more specific to, to that situation. I sometimes get behavioral questions. Animals, quite often rescues, that display odd behavior and then don't always like to take on the behavioral cases because I believe behaviorists are better qualified in that area. However, sometimes it's nice for people to go to the behaviorist and say, right, we've spoken to a communicator. This is what the animal's thinking when they do that behavior. And then the behaviorist knows what's behind, and then they can kind of hit the ground running. I think only once or twice I've actually refused a case and sent them straight to the behaviorist. But other times I make it very clear. I say to the people, I can't solve the issue. There've been a few that have been solved indirectly, but I can at least tell you what the animal's thinking. Mm-hmm. Is it out of fear that they're barking at people coming up to the house, or is it something else? And then at least we know, and then we can put things in place that kind of help them through it. So yeah, I think the questions are all dependent on the situation.
Do you find that any behaviors are typical for dogs or cats? Like, like people will say that they're introverts and things like that. Like, are there those types of behaviors for dogs? Are there introverts for dogs who are just shy?
Yes, yes, I have had animals who generally just aren't very sociable. So I can quite often tell when I first connect to an animal before I even start chatting with it. I'm able to get a sense of its personality, and I normally describe the animal first, and that's generally how people know that I have actually connected to their dog. So it's not like I'm just saying, "Oh, here's a picture of a Doberman." Right, so your dog is big and strong. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Because sometimes it'll be a picture of a Doberman, and I will say, "Gosh, this dog's as sweet as pie. He likes a pink blanket. He likes to hide under the sofa, etc., etc." So yes, it doesn't matter. It's not. It's certainly not breed specific or species specific. Sometimes I have cats, which are. There was one just recently I spoke to, who I just said to the lady, it was almost like she was regal. When I first connected to this cat, she was a cat in spirit. I got this kind of like, and who are you? And I immediately was like, I'm Colleen, and your guardians asked me to ask you some questions because and I immediately felt like I'd been, and it was very much, well, what is it that you want? And it was like almost schoolmistress, and I remember there's two types of ways that I deliver a communication session. I can either type up the transcript and email it to somebody, or, well, I always type it up, the transcript, but you can either just have the email or we have a video conference and we chat through it. And I remember speaking to this lady, so she got to see all the actions because I was like, doing the action, and she was in hysterics. She said, "Oh my God," she said, "that's so her." She said, "When I actually married my husband, we actually have a photograph of her, sort of in the forefront walking towards the camera with us in the background blurred out, because that's just the type of character she was. She'd be like, okay, I need to be in the shot now." And it was just so funny. And you do have animals who are very much like that, like you say, introvert, extrovert, and others which are just really, really, really just laid back. They have no great message of wisdom. They just have a nice calm. There was a Labrador I spoke to once, and I think I get lulled into this false sense of security that like every animal I speak to is going to give me this, this words of wisdom and powerful breakthrough in life and all the secrets to the universe and everything. And it's not how it works, just incidentally. I do get a lot of wisdom. Some animals do have fantastic stuff to share. And I got this gold Labrador. I mean, everybody loves Labradors. They're beautiful dogs. And all of a sudden, I found myself getting really excited. And I thought, oh, this is going to be fabulous. I wonder what she's going to tell me and what secrets is she going to. And I got through the conversation and I asked the questions that the owner had given me. And I got to the end, and I was like waiting for the snippets. And I remember her face was just so clear. She just had this really calm, and she just looked at me, and I was like, and she was like, and what? Is that not enough? Is that not enough that all I want to do is just be here, be loved by my guardian, and love my guardian in return? Is that not enough? And I remember feeling a bit embarrassed, like I'd expected, and actually, who was I to place value on how important their messages were? That to that Labrador, and certainly to the lady, because she was an elderly lady, was the best thing in the world.
Right.
I kind of got put in my place very gently.
Well, it's almost like the concept that, for the most part, dogs and cats sleep all day long. Like, what do they do?
Well, they're coming up with words of wisdom or not.
Unless you take them around, it's not like, well, I'll get up and make dinner now. Oh, wait, I have to clean the room. Oh, I forgot. I'm going outside. I mean, they'll get up to go outside and they'll come back inside or whatever. But right now they're both sleeping. Well, actually, the one outside is still waiting for dinner.
Waiting for dinner. Mom.
I don't know what's going on. It might be honestly, it might be your voice, but she's for the most part deaf. So I don't know what's going on with her. She is solitary normally, but right now she's not.
She wants to
Maybe
know
she
what's
wants to
going on.
communicate.
Yeah, maybe she wants to know
Um,
what's going on.
but essentially, my animals sleep all day long, and I make a joke of it because I'm just like, what? Like, they're sleeping. What are
Great,
they doing?
it's a
They're
great
not
life,
doing
Joy.
anything.
It's a
They're
great
sleeping.
life.
And I think I think to myself, I'm not a napper, but they are. And have you? I mean, when you talk with them, do you get an impression? I mean, do you get any kind of an impression of I don't know, ambition, like the things that humans live on? We aspire, all these things. Those are not. I don't know. Are they what animals do?
No, sometimes I get animals which have or feel that they have very specific roles. So, and sometimes they're quite profound. So I think that's when you get lulled into this false sense that all animals have this massive message. And so you see, there was a message right there. So some animals will have a specific role and they will know exactly, I came into this family to do X, Y, Z. And I'll be like, okay. And then, we'll discuss it, or, I'm bonding with my mum because, my mum needs to accept herself. She had a rough upbringing and she has low self-esteem, and I'm here to help her rest. And sometimes it's that specific. And then I'd write that in the document and I'd go back to the lady and then I'd repeat it. And that would be the case. Doesn't happen all the time, but I think those are kind of very special cases. But other than that, no, animals are just, they're happy to be a companion, they're happy to be loved. They all love to be seen. So not just like, oh, there's an animal in the house, I'll feed it 3 times a day and let it get on with its life. They like to be seen and acknowledged and be part of the unit. But their feelings about their roles within the unit differ astronomically depending on the animal. I guess just like people. Some people are happy to just do their 9 to 5, and others, want to be an astrophysicist or something.
Well, believe it or not, there's somebody at my door. And I'm surprised you don't hear the dogs. It's probably it's probably a good thing that I have like sound control in my mic, but I can tell there's someone at my door. This, everyone, has never happened. I'll be right back.
They're all doing their job, letting mum know what's going on.
I am so sorry, everyone. I'm dog sitting for my neighbor's dog.
Oh, right.
He came by to say that he's leaving, so I can go pick up the dog later.
Right.
So I was going to say, what I was going to say was, some dogs are special dogs, like they're compassionate dogs for trauma victims. They're seeing eye dogs. They're service dogs. They're Army, Navy, Marine dogs, right? They find bodies, they find marijuana, they find drug. There are lots of different dogs, and Have you ever had the experience of talking with one of those types of animals?
No, no, I haven't.
Wouldn't that be fascinating?
Yeah, I did. I follow a couple of canine dogs on LinkedIn, and their handlers, because I'm actually fascinated, what goes through those animals' minds, and also how you would train them. But no, I've not. I would imagine it would be fascinating, because
Right?
their ability to analyze things, because I mean that's what they're doing in their job, isn't it? I mean, yes, they've been given their commands, but they have to analyze whether it's safe to do that. How do I get in the water if I'm looking for something? Which way do I go in? Which is the safest way? How do I get out? Fascinating. Yeah, I reckon they would be quite something to talk to, but no, not yet. Fingers crossed. Eh? I'll let you know. I'll get back to you
Let
if I
me know. I would love to be able to know, the thoughts that go through, a service dog's mind.
Yeah.
Even a dog that, um, for example, there was a point when Lucy was a puppy when she recognized that it was a child because she was very exuberant all over the place. I mean, she's still that way. She's a terrier, so she has that much energy. But I noticed that with small children, she'd back off, but not back off and get nervous,
Just give them
just
the
back
space that
off.
they need. Yeah, that's
And I
interesting.
thought to myself, that's odd. And she did it more than once. And then she grew out of it. And now she's just loud and obnoxious. She's excited to meet anybody and everybody. And there are a few things that freak her out. Lucy doesn't like hoodies and beards.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like, yeah. One time, there was a fellow around Christmas time that was dressed up as Santa.
Oh,
She was
shame.
freaking
Oh
out.
my God,
She
Santa's
was
going to get
freaking
a
out.
hard
And I
time.
was like, don't worry, Santa, it's your beard. It's
It's the beard and the hood.
yeah, the hood,
So double whammy. Oh,
and it's probably any kind of a hat. So it's anything that's going on in the face
face, yeah.
that she can't really understand. Like, what's going on there? Like, ooh, you got a problem.
Oh,
Nobody
shame.
has that. What's that?
Oh,
There's something attached to your face. My God, I want to rip it off. Can I rip it off?
it's melting.
What's
Oh,
wrong with you? Oh my God, somebody's attacking that man's face. I'm scared. So yeah, again, it's me putting words in my dog's mouth. I know you said about behavioralists. Have you ever been asked to help train a dog? Like,
mm,
if they come back and say, "Oh, my behavioralist told me that I need to do X, Y, and Z. Can you help me do that?" Type of a thing.
no, not exactly. I had a lady who had a Romanian rescue dog, and oh, he was beautiful. It was incredible. I remember when I first connected to him, he had this incredible pride about him. Like he was this, a bit like when you see the horses that prance, that do that, and they kind of have that upright feel to them. He had that feel to him. And she'd come to me because they'd tried so many trainers and behaviorists, but they couldn't get to what he's a very, very, very reactive dog. Not with them, with the family units, but anyone out there, forget it. You'd have to stick him in a crate. He was really, really bad. And when I spoke to him, there was this terrible, heavy weighing burden that when he was a puppy, he'd been taken away, or sorry, no, his litter had been taken away, and he hadn't been able to protect them. And I think he was something like, he felt like he was the biggest pup in the litter or something, but he wasn't able to protect these other puppies. So he'd kind of grown up with this fierce, but like super fierce loyalty. So once he's in a family unit, now in his head, the family units are the puppies that he wasn't able to prevent going away when he was a puppy himself. So he developed this severe kind of like protection So they were worried, well, not they weren't worried, but they were thinking that his reactivity was for fear. So I was able to speak to him and realize that it's not fear. It's not fear as in I'm scared. It's a protective,
Protection.
like I need to protect because this is my pack. This is my family, you know. Um, and actually, it was really strange because I did a double session with him because with behavior sessions, it's helpful to do, obviously more than one. And there was some remarkable changes, so much so that I also discovered, that's right, that he was really very, very intelligent. He had a super sharp mind, which they weren't taking into account because they were so busy trying to control the reactivity. And I said, no, 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 he needs to be given something like search and rescue or mental agility or obstacle courses or something that's going to make him think. So they did. They enrolled him at one, and he just blossomed because all of a sudden now he's got something to keep his mind active.
So they do need things to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can't just sleep all day long.
Yeah, no, him specifically. I mean, some are happy to sleep all day long.
I think if I did not, oh, they're gone. I think that if I didn't walk my dogs, I didn't want to use that term walk too much in front of them.
In case
But
they got excited.
I walk them because I know they need it.
Yeah.
They need the smells and they need to look around. One just needs the exercise, but the other one needs, I call her that Lucy's the mayor. She needs to like see things and do things and be part of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, so obviously some animals need
he needed
a
something
social
really.
calendar.
Yeah. But it would almost be like having someone like an astrophysicist. I don't know why I'm picking on astrophysicists tonight, but with that intelligent brain, and then just like sticking them, I don't know, in the lounge to watch soap opera on TV all day. They'd be bored stiff and they'd start getting grumpy. They'd start snapping at you because they weren't being stimulated.
Right.
So it was incredible. And because I was able to explain about the protection, I was able to speak to him and explain that actually the people in the house were adult humans and actually were very capable of protecting themselves. And even though they were very grateful for him, and we gave him other roles in the house, like alerting when people were coming to the house or whatever, the kind of guard dog, but he could step back from that. Thank you very much. Now that that he understood that, and there were changes. And in fact, I have a sort of like a every 6 months chat to kind of check in with him and see how he's doing. So sometimes the behavior changes because of the communication. And that was a lovely story. he was a lovely boy.
It is interesting. It is because you think of some dog, and I'm doing the dog thing. There are a variety of cats that probably have different histories, but essentially cats were domesticated, and they really weren't domesticated as working animals.
No.
Generally, I mean, it's like catch a mouse, and
Yeah, no cats.
But
cats
dogs have, many dogs were domesticated to be guard dogs, to be herding dogs, to be protective dogs for the family. So they have had over the years through domestication, they've had more service implied. So, for example, a herding dog, you often hear people say, "Oh, if you're going to get a terrier, there are going to be a lot of energy." Why? Because they're essentially hunting dogs.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
and it's small things they hunt, and they want to hunt. Yeah. They've got, so they're somewhat predisposed to seeing things, reacting to things, telling you that these things are there, and then expecting to be able to follow those things, perhaps.
That's right. Yeah,
satisfy those things. Yeah, bring it back to you. So, for example, I had a Rottweiler who
beautiful animals.
She would put herself in between my husband and I when we started to argue.
Oh, interesting.
She'd just
Okay.
walk in between us, and that would be like, excuse me.
Stop, stop, stop. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And she was fairly intelligent, and you had mentioned also before about moving. We moved 5 times,
Oof.
and all you needed to do was get a box out, and she'd be like,
Oh, here we go. Oh,
"You're
shame.
doing it again,
Oh,
doing it again," and she didn't get depressed, um, because we never left her. We never had
yeah, she knew she was safe with you.
right.
Yeah.
She just knew, everything's going to go in the box, and then we're going to go in the car, and we're going to go for a ride, and end up God knows where. I don't know. I really like this backyard. um, so again, there it is. I'm putting words into my dog's
Yeah, but
expression.
maybe not, Joey. Maybe not.
I don't. Um, you know, I'd like to think of myself as being extra special. So perhaps I pretend to be able to do things that I cannot do, and I make a big deal about it. But I have been approached by my friends who have said things to me like, "Oh, Molly's getting older, so when she passes, why not get another dog? You just have Lucy, and when Lucy passes, you'll be able to travel." And I'm thinking, why would I want not to have a dog? I don't know. I could not have. In the past 30 years of my life, I've always had
Dog.
2 dogs,
No, they're just part
and
of your
they are my travel.
life.
I
Mm.
do everything with them, and I don't travel like go to another country with them. A lot of some friends of mine do that they go everywhere with their dogs. I'm just really happy to be with them.
Yeah, yeah. They're an integral part of your life, clearly.
They're
Yeah.
very much a part of my life,
Mm.
and I don't know what I would do with it. I probably would not be sane. I'd probably lose it a little bit,
Well, it
right?
would be a bit odd if you read out loud to yourself if you didn't have dogs. So, that's a good enough
Well,
reason to keep the
it's
dog.
it's odd enough that I want to read out loud with the dog. It would
No,
even be worse without the dog.
I'm convinced it's one of your dogs that enjoys it. They enjoy, even if they don't understand, like you there reading War and Peace or, Emily Bronte classic or something. They might not understand it, but they just enjoy the sound of your voice because they
Maybe
just find it
maybe
comforting. You
there she was lying on the couch, and she's probably said, "What are you reading?" And I was like, "Let me read out loud."
Yes, exactly. And you'll think, oh, there I am putting words in the dog's mouth, but you're not. You see, you actually are understanding them. I mean, it's
And
obviously if you've had dogs in your life forever, Joy, you'll have you. It'll be part of you. It's a
they
natural.
domesticated me, not I domesticated them.
I love that they domesticated you.
Right? Like this, you know, we definitely are a unit, and a lot of my friends, when their dogs pass and they're like, "Oh, I'm so upset, I'm so brokenhearted," a cat or a dog, I'm like, "Go out and get yourself another one." "Oh no, I could never do that." I'm like, "You are respecting them, you're
Yeah.
not replacing them. you know um
I have been
no
asked
dogs
that.
are alike. Don't even try to replace that
Yeah, yeah,
dog,
yeah,
that
yeah. I have been asked that by people before, like, or I've lost my beloved dog, 3 years ago, and I want to get another dog. Can you connect with my dog in spirit and ask if it's all right? And like before I've even connected to the dog, my head's going, of course it's all right. It's up to you, not to the dog that's passed. The dog that's passed has passed, and you respect them, and they were in your life for a reason for that time, but their time has come to an end now, and your life is your own. And even when I do ask the question, the animals are like, yeah, of course, because animals are like, well, you loved me, you love Lucy with the Lucy part of your heart. And when Lucy passes, that part of your heart will still be Lucy, but then you get another dog called Bob. You'll love that dog with the Bob part of your heart.
absolutely.
It's, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, the human heart is big enough to cope with many, many dog hearts.
Yeah. I just think that the way people um, deal with loss is different, and
Mm,
needless to say, loss breaks your heart.
Oh,
It can
totally.
be I lost my pen, to I lost my mother, to I
Mm,
lost my car, to I lost, it could be any of those things. And it's disruptive. And
mm,
some people just can't deal with that,
mm.
any level of disruption,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
I agree.
So
Yeah.
they'd rather just never go through it again. And I always think, well, why would you want to not have 10 years of that relationship
Mm,
so that okay, so yeah, I'm saying you're going to feel sad.
yeah, yeah,
I've
we can't
lost
get
a lot
around
of.
that. Can't get around that. Yeah.
Have you ever, speaking of loss, have you ever had conversations with animals at the end?
Yes, yes, that is one of the services that I offer is actually a transition service specifically for my animals just about to pass. And I encourage people not to wait until their animal has passed to tell it all the things that they want to tell it and to ask it all the questions that they want to ask. Some people ask if their animal would like to pass naturally or if they would like help, if they were happy to pass at the vet or if they would like to pass at home. The animal gets to have a choice. And they can also bare their hearts to the animals, thank you so much for the last 15 years. You've done this for me. You've done this for me. I love the way you used to chase your tail. I love the way you played in the swimming pool, etc., etc. And equally, the animal gets their chance to say their thing back. Um, and yes, that I would say that's the hardest part of what I do, because when I've chatted, we like chatting with somebody and then 3 days later they pass away. It's hard. And I maintain contact with people. They say to me, right, we're taking the animal to the vet on Friday at 3 o'clock. And I will light a candle. I check the time zones. Light a candle Friday, 3 o'clock, with a little note there for the animal and wish it well on its journey. And I sit and I have a moment of respect for that animal because I've spoken to the animal. And it's the same for the people. And a week later, drop them a little message and just, how they're doing. It is hard, but I know that even though it's emotional, people appreciate that moment that they're able to give those animals the message and get messages back.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that animal will bring up an odd memory. There was an animal that I spoke to that brought up a really, really odd scene, that there was this one specific memory that he had in its head. And it turned out to be this holiday that they'd gone on, and there was like a walk alongside a canal. And the people were like, oh my God, we'd forgotten about that. And I was like, yeah, but the dog hadn't. The dog remembers that little scene. And yeah, incredible. But it is hard. Like you say, loss is hard. Inevitable when you have animals, but you've got to know that the loss is going to come if you're going to have an animal. And like you correctly say, you'd rather have 10 years of that happiness, even if it does come with loss.
It's obviously shorter for animals than it is
Yeah,
for humans, but you never know when you're going to have a loss. Just because, you have a child doesn't mean the child's going to outlive you. That doesn't always
that's
happen.
true.
And
Yeah.
there's a risk there. And sadly, I'm not saying, better or worse. I'm only saying that would you rather just, oh, I'm going to eventually lose everything, therefore I'll be in the
I won't
closet.
have anything. Yeah, exactly. Because then you're missing out. You're missing out on all those moments of happiness
Right, right.
because you're frightened of that feeling of loss. Yeah.
Something you mentioned that um, comes to mind for me is memory. And we don't necessarily, we think like that dogs don't have memory. That they, I don't know. We're instilling behaviors into them where we tell them to sit, and when we say the word sit, they sit down. Don't you think that they remember that word, that they hear it and remember it? Therefore, they have memories. And if they
Mm.
can remember a word, then they'll remember your face.
Oh,
They'll
absolutely.
remember the time. They're remembering a lot of things.
Yeah, they're remembering a man with a hood or a beard that frightened them at some, or a woman with a beard and a hood who
Oh, that would
frightened them
even be
at some
scarier.
point. Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah, they
Obviously, we're at the circus at one point in time. And
they
a
absolutely do
bearded
remember.
woman freaked them out. No, but I think that dogs most certainly have memories, and
Mm,
they may have trauma as you've mentioned, they may have a good memory, and in their mind, they go back when they go to sleep at night. They're like, "Oh, the canal," and they go to sleep.
Yes. Oh,
Oh,
happy
I
memories.
remember that walk on the canal. So, I'd say that they remember people they don't like.
Mm, mm.
So they do have memories.
Yeah, they absolutely do have memories. There was a little dog that I spoke to, and I remember I said I don't get context from people. It was just a rescue that this lady had, and I asked him about his past because that was one of her questions, because it was a rescue dog. And I got this very vivid image of this dog being in this really tight enclosed space, but his feet were burning, and he couldn't find anywhere to pee and poo anywhere because this little enclosure was so bad. And he was really bothered. His feet were really bothering him. So I remember when I got back to her and I said, does this pup have something wrong with his feet? Because then she was like, oh my God, Colleen, you wouldn't believe it. We got him from a puppy breeder hoarder thing, jam packed with other dogs, and he had urine burns halfway up his paws, that he'd lost all the hair on his paws. And I was just like, oh my God. And he remembered that. I mean, he was now probably 18 months, 2 years. And this was from like yonks ago when the shelter rescued him. You can't argue that that's a memory. That's stuck in his little head. That is stuck in his little head, and whether it traumatizes him or whether it's just a memory that he has, is another discussion altogether. But yeah, they absolutely have memory. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, I wish you were my neighbor, because if you were, I would be knocking at your door saying, "Okay, it's time for another session."
Wouldn't that be good? We could have a coffee. Proper
With the
coffee
dog.
in real
The dog
life.
can have a water, and we can have a coffee. Because I'm fascinated by um, uh, everyone's reality, everyone and everything's, and sometimes I even think to myself, does a rock have perception of reality? I mean, just because we think we're so smart, we don't think that there's something there, but maybe it does, because it knows where north and south is.
Yeah, we don't know, do we?
So is that all the memory that it needs? That it
Uh,
remembers where north and south is? That it's metallic and it has those properties. We all have all different types of properties. Sometimes they can be elemental, and sometimes they
mm-hmm.
can be fairly sophisticated. And when we enter the animal world, we're talking about lots of sophistication.
Yeah. I think much more than we realize, but also sometimes much simpler than we realize. Their understanding might be more complex than we realize, but their outlook on life is very, very simple.
Well, what I tried to explain to my husband a number of times is, whatever you do to an animal, don't lie, because their perception of you saying you want a cookie, you want a treat, and not giving it to them is a lie.
They
And
know.
they will mistrust you. They will
Yeah,
learn to
they know.
ignore you and mistrust you. If you say come, they'll doubt you.
Mm.
So you cannot lie to a dog. And I think that's because, as you said, simpler. They're fairly simple. They don't understand when you say something that you don't mean it.
Mm. Yeah.
Do they have sense of humor? Some dogs may. Some dogs and cats may be sophisticated and may actually have a sense of humor. But I would suggest that for the most part, they don't think that someone would say something and mean something completely different,
Yeah.
or outright lie.
Yeah.
They because there's no
Yeah. I know
there's
what you're
no
trying
need for them to do that.
to. That's right. Yeah. It
They
doesn't
can
exist in their world.
Yeah, they can pretend to do something to protect themselves in some way, shape, and form, like, feign, like pretend that they're going to jump and not jump and then jump, so they've got their prey confused. But I don't think it's not an all out lie. It's
No.
strategy for them, It's not a lie. They don't, their strategy
It,
is not, okay, I'll
that's right.
lie and cheat for
Yeah,
life and I'll see what I can get away with.
it's strategy. It's not vindictiveness. Yes,
Right.
you're right. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
it's almost like they fell on it. If an animal is taking care of itself, if it's out in the wild, and if it needs to take care of itself, and if it by mistake does something, and then it says, "Oh, that worked." Again, memory, and they'll do it again.
Yeah,
Oh, it worked. I'll
yeah.
do it again, and now it's a behavior that's
Learned
odd.
behavior.
It's odd for that particular animal, whatever. Um, but it's not a lie.
No, it's just it's worked out that a specific behavior ends in a specific result. You're right. It's just a
And the
learn.
thing is, humans have the ability to act, drama, lie, all these things. And I don't know um, how much that clutters an animal's uh, thinking process. It's like, what is this human doing?
Yeah, yeah. I think it would come across, the animal world is also very much energy wise, and animals can pick up when we're happy, when we're excited, or when we're anxious. And I think when we're lying or being deceitful, we're giving off a vibe, aren't we? We there's going to be something off. And I think animals there will pick that up. They might not know this person's lying or this person's being deceitful. They will just be like, hang on a second, something's not right here. They'll pick up. But yeah, they have no reason to lie amongst themselves. You don't see Mrs. Lion going behind Mr. Lion's back and having a bit of a quickie on the side and going, oh no, I've just been out chasing a zebra.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, their lives are very much more simple than ours.
Do do have you ever been able to listen into, like you had mentioned Mr. and Mrs. Lion? Have you ever been able to listen in to animals chit chattering amongst themselves?
No, what I wanted to try, but I haven't yet tried, is because I live in the rural countryside. We often have the local farmer that puts his cows out to pasture in the fields around us, and they come up quite close. We've got a stream separating our garden from the field that they're in, and I've often wondered to myself, what I should do? I should go stand on the other side of the river, and I should just kind of like try and get myself in the zone and go, "Hi, I'm Colleen. Anyone want to chat?" And then, and kind of see what happens. But they haven't been close enough yet for me to try it out, because I wondered as much as you. I thought, well, if I just kind of sat there quietly, could I listen
I
to?
think you ought to try it because
No,
they may hear you from afar.
yeah, it's like, oh, this patch of grass is nice. Oh, hang on a second, I'm just having a bit of a poop over here. Oh, you got to try these. Oh, these daisies over here. You guys have got to come over here. And yeah, you can just imagine it.
Or don't, these babies are mine. You come over here, I'm going to beat the F11 daylight out of you. You just stay over there,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
with that stinky poop that you got going on.
Oh, that'll
I
be
just, I, I, I love the possibility of understanding um, simple things, like even people who speak different languages can communicate.
good.
And sometimes I wonder if humans will ever be able to, um, all be clairvoyant, all be telepathic.
Yeah.
Like the that we speak different languages now. Will we ever all be able to just understand each other?
Yeah. That'd be a nice thought, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it? Yeah,
Think of all those misunderstandings that could be avoided.
yeah. Like the odd thing is in the animal world. Um, let's say there's no humans in the animal world. They're more or less all living amongst themselves, and the
Mm.
only thing that they do is eat the food chain down, right? So the cat's gonna eat the mouse. The mouse is gonna eat the, what do they eat?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't want to think about it. The bird is going to eat the worm, those types of things.
Yeah.
But essentially, there are not necessarily all out wars between animals,
That's right.
just humans.
Yeah.
So I long for the time where we can. It's kind of odd. You think of animals as being very violent and aggressive and all these things, and certainly bulls are, right?
They
Bulls are.
can be. Yeah, they can be. Yeah.
Lions and tigers and the larger cats can be alligators. Yeah, they're not too nice together. I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I often wonder. We think we're so smart, right?
Mm.
And I often think to myself, that's like almost like, we each have our own individual perception. Well, now we're throwing some sort of a species perception that we're the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
And it may be that we are top of the food chain, but
Doesn't make us the
perhaps,
cleverest, though, does it?
exactly. And perhaps that's because they don't want to be top of the food chain. It's like, yeah, go ahead. Let me know how that turns out for you.
Yeah, exactly that. So we'll just stand here and watch. Get on with it. Yeah, we'll
Good
come
time.
from the sidelines.
Because you know what? I'd rather be a wolf, and in a few thousand years, you're going to domesticate me, and you'll have me laying in your house, and you'll be working, and I'll be doing nothing. So
A good point. Yes. Now he's
let's
the
see how
cleverest.
that works out for you.
Now he's the cleverest. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. So, if people want to find you on the internet, how can they do that?
I have a website which is www.authenticpathways.net. And my social media platform of choice is LinkedIn, but you can just search for my name. I'm there as Colleen Kersey. I am on Facebook, but I spend more time on LinkedIn. So yeah. So the posts that I do on LinkedIn share my experiences about talking to animals. So if you want to read about experiences that I've had, or messages that I've had, or things that I've learned, or things which I think I've gone wrong but have turned out okay, they're all on LinkedIn.
Very
So,
nice. I would strongly suggest that everybody get closer to animals.
oh, absolutely. We can all learn something in some way. It doesn't always have to be via communication, but we can
There
all
is a
learn
grace there.
something. Mm.
There is a certain grace about, interspecies communication. Like you said, there's a simpler life, and recognizing that there's a simpler life sort of makes you humble.
Absolutely. That is very true.
It's been a pleasure talking with you,
It's been great fun, Joy, and the time has flown.
especially with the knocking at the door and choking to death and all the other interruptions. Such is life.
No, it's been lovely. Thank you very, very much for having me. And I will get back to you if I have a chance to talk to a canine dog or a
Oh,
herd of cows.
there you go. I want you to sit out there and give them a holler and see what happens. You may
Okay.
end up with a flock of birds. You
Okay.
don't know.
You never know, right?
Everybody out there, and all of a sudden, it would be an interesting experiment.
Okay. I'll get back to you. I'll let you know, definitely.
All right then. Take care, everyone.
All right then. Cheers for now.
Bye bye.
Bye.